Tracy, welcome to the Lead, Learn, Grow podcast. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Full disclosure, I'm going to tell the audience how we met. So I posted a little story in my
Mhm.
leadership newsletter, The Huddle, which many of the folks listening may be familiar with. And I know it's really hard to believe, but I made up some stuff. Like I didn't get some of the facts exactly right. And you were kind enough to say, hey, thanks for posting this. It was really great. But by the way, you got this little fact wrong. And then I said, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? Because I think it's really, really fascinating. So let's start with um, the foundation. So Tracy, can you describe the mission of the I Got This Foundation and what it's all about, and particularly how it engages and interacts with people with disabilities?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on and a chance to really tell the world about the foundation and our mission. The I Got This Foundation was founded in 2019 on Amy's 24th birthday. 21st birthday. It was in honor of her performance at the Waste Management Phoenix Open when she and Gary Woodland had that amazing shot or played that amazing 16th hole. And Amy found herself in that position where Gary kept looking at her. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And Amy being Amy, she's a golfer first and foremost. She just happens to have Down syndrome. And she said, I got this. And sure enough, she played that hole, parring it, which to a crowd of about 8,000 people cheering her on. And in that moment, the family realized that there are so many things that athletes with intellectual disabilities can do if they're given the chance. So with the founding of the I Got This Foundation, its mission is to provide professional quality golf instruction to athletes with intellectual disabilities. It's an opportunity for us to show families who have been told no for so many years that their person or their loved one can't do something, to say maybe they can't do it in a traditional way, but if provided with the right opportunity in the right environment, they absolutely can do these things. And so we have created the I Got This Golf Academies. And when we first started, the idea was that we would help fund organizations across the country that wanted to introduce golf to their constituency, to those with intellectual impairments. And in doing so, we realized people were great to ask for money. And then all of a sudden they would come back to us and say, now what do we do with it? We're kind of lost. And so we realized we had a good program here in Phoenix with our instructor, Matt Acuff, to teach with a certain methodology and to reach athletes. And we realized that was the product we needed to create and to provide to everyone. So we reviewed what we had done in 2021, which was not a whole lot coming out of COVID. In 2022, we revamped our academy to really streamline it to be an 11-hour event. We split it up into 5 days, 2-hour lessons for 4 weeks, and then a review, and then a showcase on the last day. And that showcase gives our athletes an opportunity to demonstrate what they've learned. And golf is amazing because no matter who you are or how old you are or what your skill level is, when you're on the golf course, it's you, your clubs, and the greens, right? It's not about the 8 other people around you. If you're competitive, yes, it's about the score at the end, but what they do does not affect what you do, and what you do does not affect them. So it's the perfect opportunity for someone with an intellectual disability to learn a sport that they then can go out and play with family, with friends, or like Amy, they have a chance to make their high school golf team. Amy was the first athlete with Down syndrome to receive a college scholarship, and she was the first athlete to compete in a national collegiate championship, and she has Down syndrome.
Yeah.
Imagine all the people out there who've been told no and then given this opportunity to not only learn a sport, but to stay active, to be outside. It has health benefits physically, mentally, and then socializing. It's an opportunity for these athletes to interact not only with family and friends, but new people.
Yeah, and for the folks who aren't familiar, so you've given a pretty good synopsis, but tell us a little more about Amy. How did this whole event with Gary Woodland and how did all that come about? Like, go a little deeper into that
Sure.
if you don't care.
So I first met Amy back in 2017 while I was with the LPGA. I was sales and marketing manager for the Founders Cup in Phoenix. And we reached out to Special Olympics after hearing about Amy in the news, who happened to be a Valley golfer.
Mhm.
And we invited her out to play in the Pro-Am for the LPGA. And at that point, Amy had been golfing for, I think she was probably right around 7 or 8 years. And so she and her family came out, participated in that event, and we kept watching her story. And all of a sudden, she was going from this gal that just played on her high school team. Her junior high golf coach said, "Hey, I think she should try out for high school, right? I think she's got some natural talent." And Joe, her dad, knew that there was natural talent because it all started one day when she just tagged along to go to a tournament with him. He said, "Come on, why don't you hit one?" And she ended up swinging a club, and Joe went, "Wow, she's got some natural talent there." And so that progressed into more and more experiences. And she golfed through Special Olympics. She took lessons here in Phoenix. And then Special Olympics invited her to come out to the WM Phoenix Open in 2019 and just had this opportunity to play alongside a PGA player in a practice round.
Mm-hmm. And I'll put the video in the show notes, but it's remarkable. So those of you that are golf fans, you'll recognize the 16th hole
Correct.
at it's at TPC Scottsdale. Is that
Correct.
the
Champions course, yes.
yeah,
The stadium
and
course. I'm sorry, it's the stadium course.
and yeah, and it really is like it's the most unique thing in golf. The players sort of walk through a tunnel, and then there's
Yes.
like double or triple. It's like, it's like playing a golf hole in Yankee Stadium or something. Like
Mhm.
it's nuts.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, like, I would be so nervous and like just it's crazy. And in the video, as you stated, she makes she pars the hole, hits it in the sand. Oh no. It's a beautiful sand shot, makes a 15-foot putt or whatever it was, and the place was going nuts. And
Well, and the unique thing about that is that in that moment, Amy was just Amy. She was golfing, and her personal mantra was, "I got this." And she's able to hit a shot, and no matter what the outcome is, move on to the next shot. And it was really inspiring to see her get up to the tee, take that swing, goes in the bunker, and doesn't phase her. She gets there, and Gary's like, "All right, Amy, what do you think?" And she assures him, the PGA pro, "I got this." And she steps into the bunker, and she takes her shot. She lands it within 10 feet of the hole. The crowd goes wild, 8,000 people watching. Gary gets up there and is like, "All right, Amy, what do you think?" And she doesn't wait for Gary or Matt Kucher to help her read her putt. She's like, "Nope, I got this." And sure enough, she sinks that putt. And in that moment, we set the golf world, on their ear to think, wow, this is 16. There are a lot of players that have been out there that would have died for the chance to make a par,
yeah.
during that week or any time of the year, really.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then to kind of finish that thread, and then we'll move on to other things, but finish the story. So so fast forward a
Mhm.
month or a few months, and Gary Woodland's at Pebble, and he's at the U.S. Open, and tell the
Yes.
story.
So yeah, Gary kept in touch with Amy and the family over the course of the next several months. And, he had mentioned that Amy was a true inspiration for him, and it kind of changed his game that year. And I don't mean that overall, but just a part of that mental state. And there were some surprise moments where he would call Amy up and say, "Amy, what do you think?" And then after winning the Open, he actually made mention, they shared that moment with Amy and said that it was her inspiration that helped him win, that they won that together.
Yeah.
And that was such an emotional charge for Gary, for Amy, not only her family and friends, but those constituents that she's golfed with, or her Special Olympic fellow athletes, and just communities around the world to finally see that there's an opportunity for those with intellectual disabilities.
Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful stories ever, and it really is. It's so inspiring, and I'll put the video in the show notes, and you'll see. So how did your journey, Tracy, lead to? So obviously you were a part of this from way back when you were with the
Mhm.
LPGA, but how did this lead you to working for the foundation?
It's really interesting. I think back to school. I actually played golf in high school back when you had to have clubs and a free hour, but that was about it. There wasn't much else required. And never did I think that I would end up not only in the golf space, but being able to be involved in, such a great mission. I actually started off in college. I actually worked at Disney. And Disney was a huge part of my life and my training. I went through their Disney University program while I was in college. And after college, I got into sales. And really, my whole thing was I was constantly selling the next idea and taking information that I was passionate about and figuring out how to repurpose that information and engage others. And so during my time at Radio Disney here in Phoenix, Disney ABC Television Group, my coworker, another salesperson, ran into the LPGA because they were in town and said, "Hey, I don't know anything about golf. I have no interest in golf really. Would you like to take this lead?" It was really a sales lead from a networking event. And I said, "Absolutely." So I actually called on the LPGA. They became my clients. So we worked with their junior days for a couple of years. As Disney closed here in town, the LPGA approached and said, "Hey, we think that you'd be a good fit for us. We'd like you to apply, interview for our sales and marketing job here in Phoenix." And so I went from the LPGA being my client to being a member of the LPGA. And then that's where I met Amy. And all of a sudden, many years later, Joe approached me and said, "I know you love the LPGA and everything they're doing, but I also know you love the idea of growing golf and making the game better than you found it. Would you ever consider the opportunity to help run the foundation?" And at that point, the tournament had moved from Phoenix, where I live, to the East Coast. And while I loved it and everything about it, it was harder to make that commute. So it was an opportunity that just happened in the right time in the right place. And that experience with the LPGA has really helped me in my role with the foundation, because I got to know the founders of the LPGA that were living at the time. So Marilyn Smith and Shirley Spork, Marlene Vossler-Hagee. I met Louise Suggs. And all of a sudden, the stories that they told me about what it was like to start this and hear people say, "Yeah, well, that's cool, but is there a need for women's golf? Is there a need for professional women's golf?" And that was in 1950. When I left the LPGA, colleagues looked at me and said, "This is a great opportunity. Oh, you'll do great. But is there a need for it?" And I think Amy is a testament that there absolutely is a need, and not just in golf, but all sports. We need to take that step back to look and see, when we want to be focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, what does that really mean? Because there's always someone that we're overlooking, and truly it's those with intellectual disabilities.
Yeah, how have you seen golf contribute to the personal growth? You talked about how golf is sort of the perfect sport because it's just
Mhm.
you and the ball and the course, and I bet you've seen some examples of how people have grown in confidence and social skills. I'd love to hear some stories about that. Like, how have you seen what's been the impact with folks?
Sure.
We know Amy's story. What about others?
That's one of my favorite questions, and I get so excited when I get asked, because it's hard to narrow it down to just a couple of stories.
Mhm.
Every time we host an academy, we're walking away with 6 to 12 athletes that have their own "I got this" moment, and it's that story for us to share. And I'll talk about two folks really quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The first is a young man by the name of Parker. Parker came to us for our first academy, and our academies actually implement an athlete playing partner configuration. So each athlete is asked to bring a playing partner, somebody that's a constant in their life, because it acts as a bridge between our coach and the athlete. It's a bridge between home life and not having to have that parent-child role all the time. And then it helps that athlete be able to play golf beyond the academy. We don't want them to just come out and learn and then forget it and not have opportunities. We want somebody who will take them back to the course. So that first time Parker showed up, and he had an assistant, but really wasn't a playing partner, and he was kind of lost, and we had to have folks fill in for him. He repeated that an academy a second time, and that's what we do. You take that first academy until you are comfortable to move up into the intermediate group. So on that second time, Parker had a partner,
Mhm.
and he was there every single week. And he went from a young man who was a little disheveled and uncomfortable and not making eye contact to, at the end, he said, "All I want to do is be a golfer like Amy, and I want to play in a pro-am." And at the end of the academy, his family registered him for a charity scramble. And he came out and played with 3 of his brothers and sisters. And Parker was dressed like a golfer. And Parker was at the tee box, and he was a golfer. And he played that day. And his mom came out and attended the reception afterwards. And she said it's made such a difference in his life not just from being outside and staying physically active, but now he's able to meet new friends and he wants to socialize now, whereas before he maybe didn't. In fact, during that reception, I was making a speech, thanking everybody, talking about Parker and some of our athletes, and suddenly Parker stands up and says, I have something to say. So he comes and grabs the mic from me and he looks around and he said, all I ever wanted to do was be a golfer like Amy, and now I'm a golfer.
Wow.
And really, there was nothing much for me to say after that. So that was exciting. And then one other young man, his name was Davis, and Davis was a similar situation. Davis is on the spectrum. He has some physical conditions as well. So we sometimes see both the intellectual and physical disabilities. Mm-hmm. And when Davis first came to us, his eyes were averted. He was there because his parents wanted him to try. His dad golfs, it would take him out, and sometimes Davis would get up and putt. Most of the time he would ride in the cart. And that first week, Davis didn't want to be there. He preferred to be home playing his video games, which I get. You're 17. That's about what kids like to do, right? And by the third week, Davis was so focused on what he was doing that he had forgotten about those games. He stopped talking about going home and doing something else. He wanted to stay there longer for those lessons. And in that fourth week, he was practicing, and you could tell he was kind of getting sore and he was moving around. And his mom said, Davis, it's great. You can take a break. You're doing a great job. And Davis said, no, coach said I have to hit these 5 balls, and I'm going to hit these 5 balls before I can take a break. And sure enough, he's got chipping and pitching. If you ever need somebody on a scramble team, you know, he's your guy. And then the very next week is our skills showcase, where they get to show off. They demonstrate to family and friends what they've learned. And we had a moment where we were thanking our sponsors, thanking our athletes, our coaches, the facility. And all of a sudden, Davis, this very shy kid that didn't want to speak to anybody, is raising his hands. Excuse me, Coach Tracy? Yeah, yes, Davis, I would like to say something. And in that moment, he took the floor to address the crowd. To see that change, not in 5 years or 5 months, but in 5 weeks over the course of 10 hours, to make that kind of impact on the lives of these athletes and their families. Because for Mom Shelley, you know, Parker's mom, all of a sudden she was excited and thrilled and relieved because her athlete, her child, found something that felt good and comfortable, and they were able to proceed and excel at. And same thing with Davis, that his mom and dad were so excited because now Davis wasn't just riding in a golf cart. Davis could go out with his dad and he could actually make a tee shot. He could chip, he could pitch, he could putt. He was part of the day. He was not attached to the day.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So what about people? So I'm in Virginia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what about people that are hearing this and they have a family member or a friend that might be interested or benefit from this? Like, what are, I mean, I don't think you guys are, you know, across the country.
We just launched this year a national program, actually.
Oh, okay.
So
So how would they interact with you guys if they're, you know, outside of, you know, the Southwest?
well, it's an interesting question. Just the beginning of this year, we branched out into 5 states with the help of Touchstone Golf. And their foundation supported us in bringing academies to California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana. And in doing that, we realized we need instructors. And one of the problems that we find with those with intellectual disabilities is they reach out for help and coaching. And what we find with organizations like Special Olympics, which are fabulous, it tends to be a lot of volunteer movement, right? A lot of volunteer involvement, volunteer coaching. But our athletes really need instruction. So for us to take our academy on the road and to go to multiple states, we suddenly had to create an instructor academy. We had to take golf professionals that were already giving instruction and give them an additional layer of information, of experience, a new methodology, so that they would understand how best to communicate with our athletes. Very different from a physical disability, which may require special equipment. But from our side of things, it's really about the approach, how you say what you're going to say, and how you work with the athlete. So we instituted an instructor academy. It launched on May 1st. It's an online program where LPGA, PGA, any teaching pro across the country can register to take this course, and then they become certified in the I Got This methodology. We then partnered with the National Alliance for Accessible Golf to have a database, which we are in the midst of creating, for professional golf instructors across the country that are IGT certified that can actually work with athletes with intellectual impairments. So now, if you're in Virginia and you have an organization, a constituency that wants to introduce this, then you can reach out to us. We'll work to get an instructor trained in your area. We'll provide them all of the equipment to run their own academy, and that's how we launch nationwide.
That's fantastic. I really hope someone hears this that this connects with, because what a great opportunity for a person, for a family. That's fantastic. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So so what are some of the unique challenges, like in, because look, you tell stories and it's like, oh my gosh, I can only imagine, like everybody's lining up to, you know, introduce you to people and to
Mhm.
give you money and to help you. And I know it's not probably like that. It's not as easy as it sounds. Like
I wish it were that easy.
yeah, what are some of the challenges that you find in connecting with new communities and expanding the reach of the foundation?
So I think our biggest challenge is getting to the families and helping them understand that this isn't just, it's not just an idea or a thought. We have a proven methodology. And if you will allow the time to learn about who we are, to join in an academy, then there is going to be progress, and it's going to be measurable progress. And
Mm.
for us, as we reach out, we have golf courses that are excited to bring us on board, that will welcome us, but then we need the constituency. So to get the constituency, we need to have the advertising, and to get the advertising, you need to have the dollars rolling in. So we are a nonprofit, and we're constantly working to bring on new sponsors and to help us grow our reach. The more communities we can talk to, get in front of, the more events we have a chance to attend and to show videos, to demonstrate what our athletes are able to do in person. If you could put me in a room full of families that have loved ones with an intellectual disability, and I can pick up a ruler and teach them how to hold a golf club properly and get into a position and get ready to swing and do that in 30 minutes and actually have a viable swing, that's going to impress them. And then that's going to encourage them to attend. So it's just exposure for us right now. It's people becoming our storytellers, champions of what we do. It's the sponsorship dollars that will allow us to provide marketing opportunities or to attend events and really get the message out there. Our academies themselves are low cost for families. So we charge $20 for the entire instruction for an athlete. It's really nominal. But we also pay our instructors. We need money so that we can pay quality instructors. We don't look for volunteers because we want somebody that's truly vested in the outcome of the academy and our athletes.
So the goal then is to find instructors and venues and do the academy in different places. Like that's the vision. Like take the thing that
Yes.
you're doing in Phoenix and replicate it, right?
And our long-term vision truly is to create more playing opportunities. So not only, as I mentioned at the beginning, we want to teach them golf, but we want there to be opportunities for them to keep playing. So our long-term goal would be to have an invitational in Phoenix where athletes from around the country either qualify or invited by the foundation to come participate in independent play. That's one of the biggest things with our athletes. It is about independent play. So like Davis, who was just sitting on the golf cart, occasionally joining his dad, we want Davis to play alongside his dad, not alternate shot, not best ball, but to actually play 18 holes. And this past February, we held our first invitational, and we had 20 male and 5 female athletes with intellectual impairments that competed in an 18-hole independent play. And that's pretty impressive.
That is. That is. How much fun. I mean, that it's just like so I want to ask you one more question, and then I want to actually go into something you said earlier about your career. But so the best way, if someone's out here listening, um, the best, like if this connects with them,
Mhm.
the best thing for them to do would be just to reach out to the foundation, and then you
Yes,
guys could figure out, what,
absolutely.
if there's a
Yes, we
way.
have if you follow us on social media through Facebook, there are opportunities to connect with us and let us know if you're interested in an academy. We do
Okay.
discovery golf events where we just introduce the idea of golf to communities. We have our charity fundraiser. So if you're a golfer and you're in the Arizona area and you like to play, or if you're a golfer that likes to travel, we have our fundraising tournament coming up in in November. And then we have our invitational will return in February. So there's a lot of opportunities to get involved, whether it's, financial support, whether it's being a coach, whether it's introducing us or just telling our story to someone else.
Very good, very good. And I'll put some of this stuff again in the show notes. So you just kind of rolled right by that whole Disney college alumni thing. Like I've
Yes.
read about that, I've heard about that. So what is like Disney University, or what is that?
So I was attending ASU, and after my freshman year, they came to the campus and said, "Hey, we have opportunities for the Disney College program." And to be honest with you, I didn't know too much about it at the time, and I figured, "What the heck? I'll throw my hat in." And I ended up being hired for the summer. They called it seasonal employment through Disney, and it's a chance for college students to actually work within the Walt Disney Company and learning kind of a trade, if you will, or being involved in various divisions of the company. So I got to work at the parks. I worked at Disneyland.
Mhm.
I did many things, but I was in the restaurant food service program and worked at the Cafe Orleans. And that first summer, I absolutely loved it. I learned so much. Part of your training is to go through Disney University, and there are varying degrees of that. As a business person, there are VIP level courses and classes. I simply attended that college level. So I was really doing a cash handling program and customer service. And I will say one thing that I think has truly helped my career is that customer service program. I can't even remember how long it was, but I remember that walking away from that program, I knew how to speak with someone, I knew how to treat someone, and I knew how to elevate a brand based on everything they taught me. And the Disney has its moments here and there, just like any other company or corporation. But at the heart of Disney, it is about taking care of the people that are there on site and making every moment magical, which transcends into what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what was your big lesson learned? And it sounds like
Mhm.
that was it. Like you know, no place on earth is better at having you give them all of your money and feeling amazing about it. You're just
Yeah.
so happy. It's
Um,
those magical moments. That's really interesting. So
and actually, I was invited back the following year to be a resident coordinator. So I
wow.
was actually on the college program for 2 years in a row, and then moved to California, where I worked for the parks for another year and a half, and then came back to Arizona and went away from it all and started in sales. And then, as I mentioned before, ended up coming back into the fold and working for Disney ABC Television Group for about 4.5 years.
Now, what was your role with the LPGA?
I was the sales and marketing manager for the Founders Cup. And the Founders Cup is the event that pays homage to the 13 women that founded the LPGA.
Yeah. So you were selling corporate sponsorships
Correct.
and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I helped out with the LPGA USGA Girls Golf Initiative here in Phoenix, working with the site director, Corey Matheson, who is in town, and also with the LPGA Foundation. I had a chance to work on Solheim Cup events, 2 Solheim Cups. I worked on UL International Crown and some of the other LPGA events. So when you're with the LPGA, you have one role, but really it just means that's what you're doing most of the year. The rest of the year, you're doing a lot of other things.
Yeah, we had actually it was probably, I don't know, maybe a year ago on the podcast, a gentleman by the name of Jeff Fitch, and Jeff
Mhm.
is with the PGA, and he sort of does that function for the big. They have I think it's the Champions Tour is how
A
they
senior.
refer to
Mhm.
the senior
Yeah.
event. So they have
Yeah.
a big event here in Richmond. So if folks are interested in that, they can go back and find that episode. So what motivates you to get up and do what you do every day? Like what's the thing that drives you at this point in your career? You've done a lot of things, you had a
Mhm.
lot of interesting experiences. What is it that kind of fires you up?
When I with the LPGA, we had the motto to leave the game better than you found it.
Mm,
And I think that's transcended into leave the world better than you found it. And there's such the initiative with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And 1 in 700 births is a child with Down syndrome. And they estimate that 1 in 100 people are on the autism spectrum. And so there are so many people in this world that are easily overlooked. And it's not necessarily intentional, but it's because we're not drawing attention to it. So for me to get up and be able to share Amy's story, and she's just such a bright, beautiful person, and her approach to life is what so many of us could benefit from, that if I can go out and tell her story and engage more families to take a chance to step outside their comfort zone, to say, yes, we are here and we want to be seen and heard, and we want these opportunities and we embrace them, and giving them the space to do that, then to me, I'm fulfilling something special.
So what's Amy up to these days?
She's traveling. She just was at a tournament in California this weekend. She has a few more events coming up. She recently participated at Pinehurst in the second USGA Adaptive Open. She's got some more tournaments coming up in the next few months. Then she takes a little bit of a break, and then she's back at it again at the first of the year.
That's great. Now we've kind of went in and out of this, but where can people, as we start to close up, where can people find information? Where can people connect? We'll just let you, as we finish, how can people connect with the foundation?
So I would encourage you to visit our website, and that's www.igotthis.foundation. And while you're on there, make sure you check out our shop. We do have some awesome I Got This hats. And so if you're a golfer and you're around the world, grab one of those. And I tell you what, you think about Amy and hole 16 at Phoenix Open, and it'll help your golf game. So that's one way to find out about us and to learn. And really, social media. We all know that social media is a beast of a program. And the more we can do to get people following us, liking us, sharing our content, then the more storytellers we have. And that just means the bigger our community grows.
So, last question. So, how has being a part of all this changed you?
I think that I take time to appreciate things more. And I think my ability personally on the golf course, I've been able to now shoot in the 80s after playing with Amy, because her attitude of, okay, that was my shot and now it's on to the next thing. And it's taught me to not get hung up on those hiccups, those speed bumps, because we're all going to have them. And there's, a phrase I like to say, it's not about what you're going to do if things go wrong. It's how you react when they do. And so it's taking that moment to take a breath, take a step back, and realize it's one moment in time. And there are ways to get through it, or to get around it, or to get over it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I think Gary Woodland was saying. Like he was, and I don't know the story exactly, but that's what really struck me about this, is how every person we meet has things to teach us. And it was obvious that the same kind of thing you're talking about was what he learned from a 10-minute or 15-minute or 20-minute interaction playing that hole with Amy. That, he's in a pressure cooker. He's probably feeling so much pressure, he probably, his knees are literally shaking.
Can't see straight.
Right. And I mean, I can't even imagine like the thing you've worked for and the most important thing ever in your world at that time. And just reminded that, you know what, the only thing that matters is like what's in front of me. It just reminds me that everybody in the world can teach us something and teach us a lot. And it's just again, it's a beautiful story. And I hope people who hear this, who feel compelled, I hope they will connect with you guys. They'll do all the things that you said, support you, even if it's just follow on social media.
Exactly.
But if you're a golfer, how can you bring this to your community? All of those things. I just applaud you, Tracy, for the work that you're doing, and I really do appreciate you spending some time with us here today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being on board, and I love following you, and so I'll keep it up.
Okay, outstanding. Thanks again, Tracy.